The gleaming halls of the Galactic Academy shimmered under blue-tinted lights as the newest batch of students arrived. Most moved with the careful steps of beings from gentle worlds. Then came Jin, walking with a confidence that made others move aside. She was the first human ever admitted to the academy. Jin looked around the massive entry hall. Hundreds of alien students shuffled about, their bodies strange and different. Some floated like clouds. Others clicked and clacked on many legs. A few rolled along on smooth orbs. They all kept their distance from her. "Look at the Death Worlder," whispered a tall, thin alien to its friend. "I heard humans eat actual dead things." Jin pretended not to hear. She was used to this. Humans came from Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world. Most beings in the galaxy evolved on worlds with mild weather, few predators, and stable conditions. Their home planets never tried to kill them with storms, quakes, or hungry beasts. Earth was different. Humans had survived floods, ice ages, volcanoes, and countless dangers. This made them stronger, faster, and more durable than most galactic species. It also made others fear them. Jin Park of Earth called a smooth voice. A blue floating being with 6 graceful arms drifted toward her. "I am Administrator Kyo. Welcome to the Academy. Your room is ready, though we had to make some adjustments for your species." Jin followed Kyo down long hallways where students stopped to stare. The gravity felt too light, the air too sweet. Everything at the Academy was adjusted to match the average needs of most species, which made it slightly wrong for everyone. Her room was small but comfortable. The bed looked too soft, the lights too dim. "We increased the gravity in your quarters by 40%, said Kyo, "and added the dangerous chemicals your species breathes. Oxygen, I believe?" "Thank you," said Jin politely. "Your schedule," said Kyo, sending a glowing file to Jin's translator pad. "Classes start tomorrow. Your first is Advanced Survival Studies with Professor Tay." After Kyo left, Jin sat on her too-soft bed. Back on Earth, she had been chosen for this program because of her test scores and adaptability. The Global Space Agency told her she would be opening doors for humanity. But looking at her schedule, Jin wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The next morning, Jin entered Professor Tay's classroom. The teacher was a tall, willowy being whose skin changed colors as he spoke. Around the room, 20 alien students sat at curved desks. All eyes, stalks, sensory pits, and vision organs turned to Jin. "Ah, our Earth student arrives," said Professor Tay, his skin turning a curious purple. "Please take a seat, any seat." The only open spots were next to a gelatinous blob contained in a mechanical suit, and beside a creature with sharp crystal spines. Jin chose the crystal being, who quickly shifted away. "I am not contagious," Jin said quietly. "My apologies," the crystal being replied, her voice like chiming bells. "I am Nari. We are not familiar with humans except through warning videos." "Warning videos?" "About Death Worlders and the dangers they pose," Nari explained. "Your kind can survive radiation levels that would dissolve my matrix." Before Jin could respond, Professor Tay's voice rose above the murmurs. "This term, we will study practical survival across various environmental extremes," he announced. "The final exam will be a live simulation challenge. You will work in teams of 4 to navigate a disaster zone and retrieve valuable data." The professor's skin rippled with green and blue patterns. "Teams will be assigned now." A list appeared on the room's central display. Jin found her name grouped with Nari, the crystal being beside her. Day, the gelatinous entity in the mechanical suit. And Sung, a methane-breathing creature with 4 eye stalks and 6 limbs. Sung's eye stalks all swiveled toward Jin, quivering with what seemed like fear. To prepare for the final challenge, teams will train together for the next 60 days, continued Professor Tay. "Starting now." Jin's teammates approached her desk reluctantly, maintaining what they considered a safe distance. "I've never worked with a Death Worlder before," Day said, his containment suit humming as he spoke. "Is it true humans can drink acid?" "Water is not acid," Jin replied, "though it is to some species, I guess." And you cannot be broken by simple pressure changes? Asked Sung, his voice a series of translated clicks. We're tougher than we look, Jin said. She held out her hand in greeting, then quickly pulled it back when all three teammates flinched. Sorry. Human custom. Perhaps, said Nari carefully. We should review the training schedule first. As they awkwardly began planning their practice sessions, Jin noticed a group of students watching them. One, a muscular red-skinned being with 4 arms, made a cutting motion across his throat while staring at her. Who is that? Jin asked. That is Han, whispered Nari. He comes from a Class 9 partially harsh world. He thinks this makes him superior to garden worlders like us. He will not like that a true death worlder has arrived. Jin sighed. It seemed she had enemies already. This exchange program would be harder than she thought. 2 weeks into the term, Jin sat alone in the academy's dining hall. She poked at her food, which was specially prepared to match Earth nutrition requirements. The meal looked like normal food, but tasted wrong in small ways that made her homesick. May I join you? Asked a voice. Jin looked up to see Nari, her crystalline form catching the light in rainbow patterns. This was unexpected. Her teammates had been polite but distant during their study sessions. Please, Jin said, gesturing to the empty seat. Nari settled carefully across from Jin. Our first team training simulation is tomorrow. I thought we might discuss strategy. Before Jin could respond, Day approached with his containment suit humming softly. The gelatinous being pulsed with nervous energy inside his mechanical shell. I see we had the same idea, he said, joining them. Moments later, Sung arrived, his 4 eye stalks swiveling to check if anyone was watching them sit with the human. This is a surprise, Jin said. I thought you all preferred to keep your distance. We have been researching humans, Day admitted. Your species has interesting problem-solving abilities. And we need to pass this class, added Sung practically. Their conversation was interrupted by laughter from a nearby table. Han, the student from the moderately harsh world, was watching them with his 4 arms crossed. Look at the garden worlders making friends with the dangerous animal, Han called out, loudly. Be careful it doesn't eat you. Jin ignored him, but her teammates shifted uncomfortably. Han fears you, whispered Nari. On his world, they believe they are the toughest species in the galaxy. Humans challenge that belief. Is it true humans can continue fighting even with limbs removed? Sung asked suddenly. Jin nearly choked on her food. What? No! Well, I mean, there are stories of people continuing despite severe injuries, but we're not invincible. But you can regrow limbs? Pressed Day. Definitely not, Jin said. Who's telling you these things? There are many stories about death worlders, Sung explained. It is hard to know what is true. Later that day, the team gathered in a practice lab to prepare for their first simulation. Professor Tay had assigned them a basic challenge: navigate through a changing environment to retrieve a data core. The simulation will test our different abilities, Day explained, displaying the course layout. This section has toxic gas. I can handle that. The unstable ground here will be difficult for me, but Sung's multiple limbs provide stability. The radiation zone will be challenging for all of us, Nari noted, her crystal form chiming softly with concern. Jin studied the course. On Earth, we learn to adapt to changing conditions. We should be flexible with our plan. Her teammates exchanged glances. Death worlders prefer chaos, Sung clicked nervously. We prefer structure. Before Jin could respond, the door slid open and Han entered with his team. We have this room reserved now, Han announced, all 4 arms planted on his hips. Jin checked the schedule on her pad. Not for another 30 minutes. Han moved closer, towering over Jin. Perhaps on your primitive world you don't understand how to read time properly. Jin stood her ground. She had faced worse bullies back on Earth. The schedule is clear, we have 30 more minutes. Han leaned down until his face was inches from Jin's. Do you know why they let you into the academy, human? As a curiosity, a pet. No one believes you can actually compete with evolved species. Jin felt her heart rate increase, an automatic response she'd been trained to control. Showing anger would only confirm the stereotypes about humans. We're just trying to prepare for class, Jin said calmly. Han, the schedule does show they have the room, said one of Han's teammates quietly. Han snorted but backed away. Fine, we'll watch how Deathworlders practice. It should be amusing. With Han's team observing, Jin felt pressure to perform well. The practice simulation began, and the team moved through the first challenges smoothly. Day glided through the toxic gas section effortlessly. Sung navigated the unstable terrain with his 6 limbs providing perfect balance. Then came the radiation zone. The simulation projected warning levels that would cause serious harm to most species. Nari's crystalline form began to show stress fractures almost immediately. I cannot continue, she chimed painfully. My structure is compromising. Jin made a quick decision. I'll get the data core. Radiation affects humans, but I can tolerate short exposure. But the levels are set for average species tolerance, Day warned. Even for a Deathworlder, I'll be quick, Jin promised. She entered the radiation zone, feeling the simulation's effects as a warm, uncomfortable sensation. Where she came from, people learned about radiation protection from an early age. She moved efficiently, retrieved the core, and returned before the exposure could cause serious damage. Han watched with narrowed eyes as Jin completed the task that had seemed impossible. Interesting approach, Professor Tay said from the doorway, where he had been quietly observing. Most teams split the radiation exposure among all members. Ms. Park, your vital signs show stress but remain within functional parameters. After class, as Jin walked back to her room, she heard footsteps behind her. That was impressive, said Day, catching up to her with Sung and Nari. On my world, such radiation would dissolve my entire being, Nari admitted. Humans are tough, Jin said simply. But we have weaknesses too. Perhaps, suggested Sung carefully, we could learn from each other. Jin smiled. It wasn't friendship yet, but it was a start. The day of the final exam arrived faster than Jin expected. She stood with her teammates outside the large metal doors of the simulation chamber, watching other teams enter one by one. None had emerged yet. The challenge parameters were updated last night, Day said, his containment suit humming as he checked his data pad. Environmental hazards have been increased by 30%. Nari's crystalline form shimmered with anxiety. That exceeds safety protocols for most species. The Academy believes in pushing boundaries, Sung clicked, all 4 eye stalks twitching nervously. Jin felt her own anxiety rising. Over the past weeks, her team had slowly begun to trust her. They had even started asking questions about Earth that weren't just about its dangers. Yesterday, Nari had shown genuine interest when Jin described rainforests and oceans. Han and his team exited the simulation chamber looking tired but successful. He smirked when he spotted Jin. Good luck. Deathworlder, he called. Try not to show off too much, it might scare your fragile friends. Before Jin could respond, Professor Tay appeared at the chamber entrance. His skin rippled with colors that Jin had learned to recognize as excitement. Team 4, you may enter, he announced. Remember, your objective is to navigate through the disaster zone and retrieve all 3 data cores. You have 40 minutes. The team stepped into the chamber, a vast room that could change its environment through advanced holographic technology combined with real elements. The door sealed behind them with a heavy clang. For a moment, everything was dark. Then the simulation activated. They stood at the edge of what looked like a devastated city. Buildings leaned at dangerous angles. The ground shook with tremors. In the distance, something that looked like a power plant billowed toxic smoke. The first data core is in that building, Day said, pointing to a structure that seemed ready to collapse. The second is in the power plant. The third is underground. Sung's breathing apparatus whirred faster. Air quality is already at dangerous levels. They moved forward carefully. The ground beneath them shifted unpredictably. What looked like solid metal would sometimes give way to reveal deep pits. Twice Jin caught Nari before she fell. The first building was a maze of fallen beams and sparking electrical wires. Sung, with his agile multiple limbs, was able to climb up and retrieve the data core from a precariously balanced platform. "One down," Jin said encouragingly. As they headed toward the power plant, the air grew thicker with simulated smoke and chemicals. Jin could feel it burning her lungs slightly, but she knew humans could handle poor air quality better than many species. "I cannot process these toxins efficiently," Day admitted, his containment suit working overtime to filter the air. "Let me take the lead here," Jin offered. "This reminds me of wildfire season back home." The power plant was worse inside. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Actual heat elements made the temperature rise to uncomfortable levels. Nari's crystalline structure began to show stress fractures from the thermal shock. "The core should be in the central chamber," Jin said, checking the map. "I can get it while you three wait here." "That's not the plan," Nari chimed weakly. "We agreed to stay together." Jin hesitated. The team had indeed agreed to face each challenge together, but she could see her teammates suffering. "Sometimes plans need to change," Jin said gently. "I can handle this section better than—" A massive explosion rocked the facility. Not simulated, an actual controlled blast that was part of the test. The floor beneath them cracked and separated. Jin jumped back as a gap opened between her and her teammates. "Jin!" Sung called out, his voice translated through clicks of panic. "I'm okay," Jin called back. "Are you all right?" Before they could answer, a calm voice came through the chambers. "Announcement system. Warning, simulation parameters exceeding safety protocols. System malfunction detected. Emergency shutdown initiated." Nothing happened. The simulation continued. "Warning, emergency shutdown failed. Hazard levels increasing beyond authorized limits." Jin's heart raced. This wasn't part of the test. Something was actually wrong. "Tay!" she called out, knowing the professor was monitoring. "The shutdown isn't working." No response came. The gap between Jin and her teammates widened as the floor continued to break apart. Across the growing chasm, she could see Nari's form developing more stress fractures. Day's containment suit was flashing red warning lights. Sung was desperately trying to help them both while struggling to breathe. Jin faced a critical choice. The second data core was just ahead of her, and the path forward was still intact. Completing the mission alone would be faster and safer for her. But her teammates were in real danger now. Without hesitation, Jin backed up several steps. She took a deep breath, ran, and leaped across the widening gap. She landed hard on the crumbling edge where her teammates stood, nearly falling into the pit below. Sung grabbed her arm with two of his limbs, pulling her to safety. "What are you doing?" Day's voice crackled through his failing suit. "The mission—" "Forget the mission," Jin said firmly. "We need to get out of here, now." As if in response to her words, the building began to collapse around them. The simulation chamber shook violently as sections of the virtual ceiling crashed down around them. Jin's teammates froze in panic, their bodies not evolved for crisis response. Alarms blared throughout the facility. "System failure in sectors 3 through 7, announced a mechanical voice. "Toxic gas levels rising. Temperature controls offline." Jin grabbed Inari as a large beam fell where the crystalline being had stood moments before. Cracks spread across Nari's surface from the stress and heat. "We need to move," Jin shouted over the noise. "Now!" Day's containment suit sparked and hissed. "My environmental systems are failing. Methane levels dropping below survival threshold." Jin looked around quickly, assessing their situation. The way they had come in was blocked by debris. The path to the exit would take them past the third data core's location. "Can you walk?" she asked her teammates. Sung wobbled on his 6 limbs. "Oxygen levels too high, making me dizzy." Jin made a fast decision. She tore a strip from her uniform and tied it around Sung's breathing apparatus, creating a makeshift filter. Then she moved to Day, examining his containment suit. "The outer seal is cracking," she said, "but the inner chamber is still intact." Jin removed her jacket and wrapped it tightly around the largest crack in Day's suit. The material wouldn't hold for long, but it might buy them time. "Nari, can you move?" Jin asked. "My lower segments are becoming brittle," Nari chimed weakly. "Temperature differentials are causing structural failure." Without hesitation, Jin lifted Nari in her arms. On Earth, Nari's weight would have been challenging, but in the station's lighter gravity, Jin could manage. Sung, help Day, Jin instructed. Stay close to me. They began moving through the collapsing structure. The air grew thicker with smoke and chemicals. Jin's lungs burned, but she kept breathing steadily. On Earth, she had once been caught in a forest fire while hiking. She had learned that panic was as dangerous as the fire itself. How are you still functioning? Day asked, his voice weak through his damaged suit. These conditions exceed survival parameters for most species. Humans adapt, Jin said simply, though she could feel her body straining. Earth throws worse at us sometimes. They reached a narrow corridor filled with swirling, toxic gas. The environmental sensors on Jin's wristband flashed red warnings. The mixture would be lethal to most beings in the station within minutes. I cannot pass through this, Sung clicked in distress. My respiratory system will shut down, Jin thought quickly. She gently set Nari down and removed her emergency breather from her belt. It wasn't designed for Sung's biology, but it might help. Use this, she said, showing Sung how to attach it to his breathing apparatus. Take shallow breaths. But you will have no protection, Day pointed out. Humans can hold their breath for a long time, Jin said, not mentioning that the gases would still affect her skin and eyes. We're good at enduring. Jin picked up Nari again and nodded to Sung and Day. Stay right behind me. Move fast. They pushed into the toxic cloud. Jin held her breath and kept her eyes narrowed to slits. Her skin immediately began to burn and itch as the chemicals made contact. She ignored the pain and kept moving forward, counting steps in her mind. 57 steps later, they emerged from the cloud. Jin gasped for air, her lungs heaving. Her skin was red and blistered in places. Jin, you are damaged, Nari observed, her crystalline voice tinged with concern. I'll heal, Jin assured her, though her voice was rough from the chemical exposure. Humans recover from most injuries. They continued through the failing simulation. The temperature swung wildly between freezing and burning as the environmental controls malfunctioned completely. Jin's body shivered, then sweated as it worked to maintain her core temperature. When they reached the underground section where the third data core was located, they found the passage blocked by a cave-in. We need to find another way, Sung suggested. Jin shook her head. No time. The whole system is failing. She set Nari down carefully. I can dig through. The structural integrity, Day began. Will hold long enough, Jin finished. She began moving rocks and debris with a strength born of adrenaline and human physiology. Muscles that evolved to run from predators, to climb trees for safety, to swim across rivers, all now worked to clear a path. Her hands bled as sharp edges cut into her skin, but she barely noticed. When the opening was large enough, Jin helped her teammates through one by one. On the other side, they found the third data core glowing in its housing. The exit should be just beyond that door, Sung said, pointing ahead. Jin grabbed the data core and secured it with the others they had collected. The mission wasn't her priority anymore, but completing it might help her teammates feel their suffering wasn't for nothing. As they approached the exit, the entire chamber gave a final violent shake. The ceiling above them cracked open. Jin looked up to see a massive section beginning to fall directly toward them. Without thinking, Jin pushed her teammates forward through the exit door. Then she braced herself, raising her arms as tons of simulated concrete came crashing down. Her last thought before impact was surprisingly calm. Earth had prepared her for this moment, her entire life. The emergency medical bay of the Galactic Academy hummed with activity. Doctors and medical drones moved quickly between beds where the injured students from the simulation disaster lay. Near the center of the room, Jin sat on the edge of her bed, refusing to lie down despite the medic's instructions. 3 fractured ribs, second-degree chemical burns across 20% of your skin, moderate radiation exposure, and a concussion, listed the head physician, a tall being with 6 eyes and gentle hands. Yet you walked here on your own power. Jin shrugged, then winced at the pain the movement caused. How are my teammates? They will recover, the physician assured her. Your quick actions prevented lasting harm. Across the room, Nari rested in a specialized crystal regeneration chamber. The light pulsing through her form was stronger now, the fractures slowly closing. Day floated in a nutrient bath that would help his cellular structure stabilize. Sung lay connected to breathing apparatus that was filtering his system of contaminants. The door slid open and Professor Tay entered. His skin was a dark, subdued blue that Jin had never seen before. Ms. Park, he said quietly. The Academy Board requests your presence once the medical team clears you. Am I in trouble? Jin asked. Quite the opposite, Professor Tay replied, though a full investigation is underway regarding the simulation malfunction. 2 hours later, Jin stood before the Academy Board in a small, formal chamber. Her skin still burned beneath the healing patches, but she had insisted on walking there without assistance. 5 senior administrators sat behind a curved desk, their diverse forms representing different galactic species. Student Jin Park, began the central figure, Administrator Kyo. We have reviewed the data from today's incident. The simulation system experienced a catastrophic failure that caused safety protocols to disengage. Environmental conditions reached levels that would have been fatal to most species. Jin stood silently waiting. The data shows that when the emergency arose, you abandoned the primary mission objective to rescue your team, continued another board member, a being composed of swirling gases. Then, remarkably, you still managed to complete the original mission requirements while carrying injured teammates to safety. Anyone would have done the same, Jin said simply. The board members exchanged glances. No, said Administrator Kyo. Our data suggest most species would not. Most would have either prioritized self-preservation or mission completion, not both. This dual capacity appears to be a human trait we had not fully understood. Jin shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. Medical scans show you sustained injuries that would incapacitate most beings, yet you continued to function at high efficiency, added a crystalline administrator who reminded Jin of an older version of Nari. How is this possible? Jin considered her answer carefully. On Earth, we evolved to keep going despite injury or pain when necessary. It's not that we don't feel pain, we do. We've just learned that sometimes you have to work through it. The door behind Jin opened, and she turned to see her teammates entering. They moved slowly, still recovering, but insisted on standing rather than using the offered hover chairs. We requested to speak, Nari chimed, her voice still weak but determined. The board nodded their permission. Jin saved our lives, Dai stated simply. When the simulation failed, she could have completed the mission alone. Instead, she came back for us. She carried me through toxic gas that was dissolving my outer layers, added Nari, while suffering chemical burns herself. And created filtration for my breathing apparatus using her own limited supplies, Sung clicked. Without this, I would have suffocated. Jin felt unexpected emotion tightening her throat. After weeks of being feared and avoided, hearing her teammates speak for her was powerful. Administrator Kyo's color shifted to a warm purple. The exchange program that brought you here was controversial, Ms. Park. Many believed Deathworlders were too dangerous or too different to integrate into galactic society. I'm still just a student trying to learn, Jin said. Perhaps, said the gaseous administrator. It is we who have learned something. The next day, Jin entered the dining hall and hesitated. Usually she sat alone. But today, Nari waved from a table where Dai and Sung were already seated. More surprisingly, several other students from different species sat with them, looking at Jin with interest rather than fear. As Jin crossed the room, she passed Han's table. The four-armed student stood as she approached. Deathworlder, he said, his voice lacking its usual mockery. Jin prepared for another insult, but instead Han extended his lower right hand. Good work in there, he said gruffly. Maybe your planet breeds more than just sturdy bodies. Jin took his hand carefully, giving a gentle shake. We have a saying on Earth, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Han actually laughed. A very Deathworld philosophy. As Jin joined, Her teammates and their new friends, Professor Tay watched from across the hall, his skin glowing with pleased yellow patterns. He made a note on his pad. Recommend expansion of exchange program for Earth students. At her table, Jin found herself answering eager questions about human culture, Earth's environments, and survival strategies. For the first time since arriving, at the academy, she felt not like a dangerous curiosity, but like a student with valuable perspectives to share. "Is it true humans can taste through their fingers?" asked a small feathered student. Jin laughed and began to explain, feeling finally at home among the stars.